I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Richard Atwater, and welcome to everybody who's on our Ring Central virtual call. And we'd like to ask Claudia if she'll call the roll of the board next.
Gladly. Good afternoon, everybody. President Atwater.
Present.
Director Millibar.
Present.
Director Estremera. Director
What'd you
Palmer.
say?
Director Estremera.
Can you watch? Yeah, go ahead. Just listen to.
Palmer's here.
Palmer, excellent. Thank you. Director Martin.
Here.
Director Chang.
Here.
And Director Anabdawi.
Here.
Excellent. We have a quorum.
Great. Now I'll turn it over to Josh Nelson, our legal counsel, and we'll go into closed session.
Thanks. Before we go into closed session, Claudia, can you just confirm we don't have any public comment on that item?
So we do not have any public comment requests on item on the closed session item.
All right, thank you. Then the board will now move into closed session, item 3A on the agenda. Thank you.
Great.
So again, you should receive a notification that you're joining the breakout session. President Atwater, it is now 2 o'clock.
All right. I'd like to reconvene into open session. Before we move forward, I'd like to ask our general counsel, Josh, to report anything that came out of closed session.
Thanks for President Atwater. We do have reportable action. So the DCA contracts with management partners for executive director services, Graham Bradner had served under that contract on an interim basis, and the board voted unanimously in closed session to remove the interim tag and appoint Mr. Bradner as executive director. Thanks, President Atwater.
Great, thank you. Also, I would like to now provide an overview of the public comment process before we start the open session. If you wish to provide live public comment, please submit your request through the link to the online request form noted on the agenda. Please make sure you submit that form by about 2:15. We are also accepting written comments, and all written comments should be emailed to Ms. Claudia Rodriguez before the conclusion of the meeting. They will be included in the record of this meeting. With that, Claudia, can you bring up the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Will do.
Great. Please follow along together. I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
For all.
We can get up. I also have one announcement that we have a new alternate director for the Class 2 directors, John Weed, who's with the Alameda County Water District and will be the alternate to Sarah Palmer. So congratulations to John. Moving right along, Claudia, do we have anybody who wants to do a public comment now under the general agenda item?
President Atwater, we do have one request from Mr. Kurt Terrace on item 5.
Okay.
Mr. Terrace.
Yes, this is Mr. Terrace, representing Infrastructure Improvement, Inc. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound clear.
Okay, thank you. I'm just commenting today as a member of the public in regards to an open item that my firm, Infrastructure Improvement, has been corresponding with the DCA about. It's regarding our request for reimbursement of our proposal costs related to the program management contract that we submitted a proposal for. And due to a number of matters, our proposal was deemed non-responsive. We disagree with that determination. We'd like to reach an agreement with your authority to resolve this administratively. And I'm open to consideration of that. We've sent letters on the matter, and we feel that it's in the best interest of the state of California and the authority to consider our request for reimbursement. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And do we have any other public comments, Claudia?
We do not, Director, or President Atwater.
All right. Then we'll move on to agenda item 6, approval of the minutes of May 20th. Do we have a motion on 6A to approve the minutes?
Move we approve?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Sarah Palmer and a second by Tony Estremera. Let's go ahead, Claudia, and call the vote on that.
Okay, President Atwater,
Yes?
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estremera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
Director Anapdawi.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item 7. Oh, excuse me, agenda item 6, the approval. No, I got myself backwards. Going on to the consent calendar, we do not have any under agenda item 7. So we move on to agenda item 8, the discussion items. And the first one is 8A, the June DCA monthly report.
Great, thank you, President Atwater. I'll start with just a quick overview of the monthly report. I would like to first, let's look at the section 1, work performed over the past month. A lot of the work over the past month has been geared towards getting our fiscal year budgets in order. That process, I think, has worked very smoothly, as we're going to be reviewing as part of the next agenda item. On the engineering side, it's much the same as it was at the last meeting. The engineering team is still working on just a few different updates to the conceptual designs and associated documentation. All that's moving along and progressing very well. Also coordinating with the environmental team and updating associated input information and quantities for the analysis. On the fieldwork side of things, we've had some work ongoing this spring. The fieldwork team was able to get in and access locations, conduct a total of 25 explorations since April. That's a total of 9 borings and 16 CPTs, but there has been a lot of delay in terms of the access and entry process. And so many of the locations that we wanted to do this fiscal year, we've had to defer or delay until we're able to get the accesses sorted out. So as we go to the next item, I wanted to skip Claudia to the budget summary. Section 3 budget summary. So you can see now in the lower right-hand corner, we're tracking a total underrun for the year. Right now estimated at about 2.45 million. So again, as you well know, we've been tracking this and watching it. We're still projecting. We don't have closeout yet of the current fiscal year, but this is what we're projecting based on all of the estimates at completion. I think it's worth taking a moment to kind of dig into these and understand where these are coming from, where the underruns are coming from. It's been in a couple of key categories, largely associated with COVID-related issues, although as this well knows, we had a pretty significant reduction in the fall of last year, and some of that belt tightening has continued philosophically through the year. So I think that's part of what we've seen, but related to COVID items on the community engagement side, you can see the second to the top row there. We had a pretty significant savings on community engagement. We did space out some of the meetings. We didn't keep necessarily with all of our monthly meetings. So some of that is reflected just in the timing of those meetings and spacing out. And then a lot of different items relate to the ongoing fieldwork that I mentioned. Not only at the very bottom, you see the fieldwork item down there, close to $500,000 saved. That was work that was intended but not completed as part of this fiscal year, due to, as I mentioned, to access limitations and so on. But also up in the program management office section, the property element is actually associated with temporary entry permits and entries. And so that's also been a pretty significant savings through the year. So I just wanted to pause and give a flavor for where those are coming from. But as I mentioned, we'll continue to track those as we close out for the current fiscal year. And we'll have finalized numbers after we've been able to close the books on all the June invoicing. Next, I wanted to skip ahead as we're still talking about the budget, skipping ahead to the histograms, please. The section 3 budget with the charts. Yes, thanks. You can see though in March and April, we were tracking pretty close to estimated. So there in November through February, we were pretty far under the projected expenses, and that's largely where the savings are originating that we're now watching. But come March, April, things have picked up and we've been tracking pretty closely to the projected expenditures. And I would expect that May and June are going to look very similar, if not even a little bit over. So anyway, just the reason May is still only partially populated is that that's just related to some of the invoice timing on those submissions. But I think things are ending and landing very nicely for the fiscal year. And I think we have achieved all of the objectives and deliverables that we intended as an organization. And so I'm very happy with the budget outcome for this fiscal year. So that's all I wanted to mention on the monthly report, but would of course be happy to answer any questions the board may
Great.
have.
Thank you very much, Graham. Let me first just check with Claudia if there's anybody who has any public comments on this agenda item.
President Atwater, we have not received any requests for this item.
Great. Questions from the board? Director Robert Chen?
Yes, President Atwater. Yeah, thanks, Graham, for the detailed description. I guess just a confirmation on the histogram, you're showing the May invoice is kind of lagging a bit. So does the going back to your section 3 budget, I think page 5, I think you're showing like a $2.45 million variance. So is that does that include the the lag in the May invoices?
So there are two a little bit different items,
Okay.
Director Chang. So what we're seeing on the budget summary, these include projections of estimate at completion. So although the invoices may be lagging, those are the actuals. We're still projecting and filling in the difference. So you're seeing a complete picture on the table. This chart is a complete picture as we project it. What you're seeing on the histogram is just a depiction of all the actuals as they're coming in.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions from members of the board? All right, well, let's move on to 8B, a more substantive discussion. This is approval of the FY 21-22 budget. Sarah, you had a question?
I just had a quick comment. Could you, when you have something like this histogram where it is, maybe I missed it, you may actually have that on there. If it is not the actual, but it's basically what's been done so far, you might make a little note at the bottom that that's what the differential is between the charts and the histogram.
Okay, that's a good comment. Yep.
Thank you for that suggestion, Sarah. So let's move on. If there aren't any other questions on 8A, we'll move on to 8B, and that's the FY 21-22 budget. Graham, you going to give that presentation?
Yes, I am. Thank you, President Atwater. So we've got a presentation that we want to walk through. This is a bit more background in terms of the budget review process and the proposed budget. So if we could go to the next slide, please. We're going to start with a review of the work breakdown structure, just to make sure that we have put a fair amount of thought into the WBS, and just want to talk philosophically for a minute about how that work breakdown structure was developed. Then we'll review the proposed fiscal year 21-22 budget by functional area, and then depicting the same information by vendor, just summarizing what that proposed budget looks like by major vendor, and then providing a summary at the end that just rolls everything up. And that would be very similar to previous presentations of the proposed fiscal year budget. So please, next slide, please, Claudia. So first, just to pause for a minute on the work breakdown structure. So it's a programmatic WBS. It's intended to live for the entire duration of the program, from where we are now all the way through completion and closeout of the project. The major phases that we've got are the program management office, which is the large number of tasks that are here in sort of the blue-purple color. These cross all the organizational support functions throughout the program, and the PMO task would extend for the entire duration of the program. The next item is what's identified as program initiation, and that really reflects the current stage of the engineering work. This program initiation phase will end at the end of the environmental planning phase. At that point, all of the engineering activities would transition to program execution, which is the final category there. We currently don't have any program execution phases opened up in the WBS right now. Everything we have is within the program management office, the PMO, and then program initiation is where the current engineering and field work are located. Director Palmer, do you have a question? Oh, you're still muted, Director Palmer, sorry.
My thumb's not fast enough. There we go. Okay. You might wanna take a look at that chart on that next page that you've got, and it's you're not dealing with a skin disease of animals, so it's management. Put an A in there.
We've got management, you mean? Is that
Yeah.
right? Okay. All right. I'll take a look at that. Nobody wants management. Okay. Wait, is that on the next one? Where is it?
Yeah, I thought you had flipped over to that one already, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Program management office. That doesn't sound good.
Well, maybe you're looking after people's animals that are in the field there. I mean, I don't know.
Funny, you look at things long enough, you just miss stuff. But thank you for the correction.
That's true.
Let me note that. Okay, so we'll start with the program management office, not the management office. There's 10 total budget categories within the PMO, and we're going to just step our way through each of these. So next slide, please. So beginning with the executive office, this is the executive office includes all activities associated with the executive director's office, the chief engineer, as well as all the DCA board meetings. Also includes all the activities associated with financial, legal, HR oversight of the DCA organization. Typically, we would have an available contingency that's included in the executive office, and it'd be down in that lower right-hand box there. So our intention is to once we've closed the books on FY 2021, we intend to take the underrun and transition it over to the FY 21-22 budget, and we'll initially park it in the undefined allowance category, which will act as reserve, by which we can consider, then moving that around as we need to, moving those funds around as we need to cover additional scope items to keep the program moving. But initially, we would put that into the allowance category. So right now, you're seeing $0 attached to that undefined allowance, and that's why we've got a placeholder there for those funds to transition to after we close the books. Next slide, please. So here we've got the community engagement tasks. So this is all of the DCA's outreach efforts with all the interested stakeholders. This includes hosting the stakeholder engagement committee meetings, as well as maintaining our website, all of our social media outlet content, everything associated with the community engagement program of DCA is all contained within this item of the executive office, or I'm sorry, of the PMO. Next task, please. Program controls group. So this is they provide management support across the entire organization related to budget, cost, schedule, risk, and document controls. Also responsible for maintaining all the policies and procedures that document all the business practices within the DCA.
What are you doing?
Next slide, please. Our administration group is responsible for managing our physical facilities and all the IT requirements for the DCA. This includes all of our personal IT support, hardware, software implementations for the program. Next slide, please. So the property and permitting management. So this is related to property permissions, property related permissions, acquisitions, temporary entry permits, for all the fieldwork activities, temporary and permanent easements, all of the construction site requirements that may at some point be needed. The permitting management group is also supporting the engineering teams and identifying, securing all permits associated with the project and compliance with all of those permit requirements. Next slide, please. So then we've got a few more additional PMO functions. So although not anticipated in the next fiscal year, we have allocated some budget associated with procurement in case there are services required within that function. Also responsible for managing all of the goods and services associated with any RFPs, bids, contract negotiations, insurance, amendments, and closeout. We've also got our health and safety and quality groups responsible for preparing their respective program management plans and overseeing implementation. Much of that work has already been established as plans, and at this point it's just maintenance. Given where we are in the program, there's not a huge allocation of funding towards health and safety and quality management. Again, these are plans that have already been established and put into place. At this point, it's just implementation and oversight. Next slide, please. So that's all of the project management office items. Now we're going to shift over to program initiation. So this includes the engineering and fieldwork functional areas, all supporting DWR's environmental planning efforts. So in this one, whereas we had 10 under the PMO, and the PMO is going to extend for the full life of the program. Under the program initiation, again, just to say it again, this is limited to the environmental planning phase, and it's subdivided into the major tasks of engineering and fieldwork. So we'll start with engineering. Next slide, please. So this is the engineering is all of the technical studies and alternative analyses to support the environmental process. Design reports have been drafted and are being prepared and iterated on with the environmental team. Again, I think it's important to note again that once the environmental planning work is complete, the DCA engineering activities will all transition over to the program execution phase with all new budget codes and structure reflecting the delivery of each of those individual features of the project. Next slide, please. And then there's the fieldwork group, which is responsible for managing and executing all the fieldwork and investigatory activities, testing activities associated with the geotechnical program, including all of the field surveys and other exploratory work. All of this to support the concept level engineering. Next slide, please. So that was our item by item summary. Now this is a depiction by budget by vendor. And this is limited to those contracts greater than or equal to 250,000, which in reality represents about 95% of the total budget. So you can see from the top down there, Jacobs having the largest, being responsible for all of the conceptual engineering work associated with what the DCA is doing now to support the environmental process. Fugro being the vendor providing geotechnical exploration services. Parsons, program management, software implementation, also the chief engineer. We've got the office lease here at Park Tower, management partner providing executive director services, Best and Krieger, general counsel for the DCA, Metropolitan Water District providing treasury, contract administrative support, as well as human resources, and then VMA, stakeholder engagement support, communications for the program. Next slide, please. So then just as a recap, we've got our total proposed budget of 21.5 million. Just to reiterate, the work activities for the next fiscal year are going to be to continue supporting the DWR environmental planning efforts, draft EIS, as well as continuing and potentially launching another field investigation program in the fall and likely in the spring. The budget there, as I indicated, of 21.5 would potentially be augmented after the closeout of FY 2021. And again, we're estimating now in the order of 2 million. We'll just have to see how that eventually lands once we've closed everything out. Once we've been able to close that out, we'll be bringing back the final number to the board for final approval before any, in order to make that action official. So I believe that is the last slide. Yeah. So I would welcome any questions from the board on the proposed budget.
Great. Thank you so much, Graham. Good presentation. Let me first just check with Claudia in case there's any public comments on the proposed budget.
So President Atwater, we do not have any public comment requests for this item.
All right, then I'll look for questions from the board, and Director Anand, go.
Thanks. Yeah, great budget summary here. Thank you for this. I did have a question. I saw the under the PMO budget item, sustainability. I don't see it show up in any of the details. Is that something that you anticipate coming on in the future, or I'm just curious about that?
Yep. Yeah, we have line items established, director and employee, that right now are not necessarily funded. There's actually a few different ones in there, and that's because the WBS is intended to live for the duration of the program. I believe last year, before we really cut back, we did have some funds allocated to sustainability, but with the reduction, we shut that down, and that's something we will bring back to life when the time is right. Where we are in the program right now over the coming year, given the budget that we're working with and what our focus is going to be on, we have not proposed to fund that for the next year, but it's there because we do intend to come back to that.
Thank you. And just one other question: is it anticipated that the field work and the geotech, any of the work that has been planned for this fiscal year that's been delayed due to access issues, that you plan to roll over to this upcoming fiscal year? I mean, is that anticipated to be completed fully and get caught up by next fiscal year?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't think there's too much there that we can't control, I'm afraid. And so we'll do our best, but there's a lot there related to the entry process that we really don't have control over. We'll certainly be ready and ready to jump on that if we can, but there's only so much we can do.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Great. Director Millibar, you had your hand up. You wanted to ask a question?
No, I think I was just waving around.
It's all right. It's all right. Any other questions from the board? Director Chang?
Yeah, President Atwater, just a quick question for Graham. So it looks like, the proposed budget that we're being asked to consider, here in a minute, is what, 21.5 million or so. And I think you reflected that we underspent by about 2.45 million in an earlier presentation. So I guess we haven't had a discussion about how, the dues kind of match up with the budget. Will we be going over that in a bit, or I guess I'm just trying to figure out, will we be trying to collect the 21.5 million and then that 2.45 million just simply goes in reserves, or what's the thought on that?
So, Director Chang, I'm going to ask a clarifying question. Tell me if I understand the question right. Is it, what do we intend to do with that rollover? If and when we have that funding available, if it is that number that we close out with and we roll it over, what are we going to do with that over the next fiscal year?
Yes, thanks for asking for that question. So you're right. I mean, I guess we do not know with certainty what we're going to end up with. We're only projecting 2.45 million at this point in time, and I think the 21.5 million reflects an estimated budget for rolling into FY22. I guess what my question was: are we intending to collect the entire 21.5 million and then just let the underspent funds kind of roll over how they may, or are we actually taking into account some potential savings to kind of offset the $21.5 million budget? Sorry if I wasn't clear before.
Oh, I see. All right. I think I understand, Director Chang. And so what we've got within our scope, if you go back to Claudia, if you don't mind taking us to program initiation section. Let's go back a few. One more. Right here. Let's stop right here. I think there you go. One more. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the can you go back one more? Sorry, I think we're working with a lag. I'm looking for the one, Claudia, that has the, has program, has the engineering blow up. Yes, this one right here. Yes, thank you. So Director Chang, the idea would be that under facility studies, we have a very long list of items that we would like to be working on over the coming year from the engineering team. We've got more work identified than we have budgeted under this line item. So if whatever rollover ends up coming to us at the end of closeout, we would end up likely pushing some of that into facility studies, and then some we would hang on to because we don't know what else might come up over the coming year. So we would hang on to some in reserve, and then likely, as an example, continue to put more towards facility studies because there's more there than we funded.
Okay, perfect answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions from Director Palmer?
Yeah,
Saw your hand
I'm
raised.
just wondering, Graham, if you talk about kind of rolling some of the stuff over, are we going to be building up a reserve or anything like that for contingencies, for things that come up, questions that might come up from DWR, that type of a thing?
Well, absolutely, and really in two ways, because in what you see there under CEQA engineering support, that is fully intended to address questions or requests or anything that comes from DWR that the engineering team needs to respond to and jump on. That is the line item for executing those types of requests. The reason the facility studies are really secondary to the CEQA support. CEQA support will be the primary activities of the engineering team. But as the team becomes available and we tackle these various facility studies, that's where the team would shift focus and start working on these different items. So to answer your question, number one, we're establishing a line item budget to do exactly what I think you said, which is jump on things as DWR requests it of the engineering team. Secondly, we will be maintaining a pretty big contingency back under the executive office where we have it currently zeroed out. And when we roll over the underrun, we're going to keep a chunk of it in there and not redistribute it among the various line item budgets. We'll hang on to it in case other items come up through the course of the year.
Okay. I mean, I guess go ahead, sorry.
We'll probably put some into additional facility studies if we need it, and then there's probably various other locations where we could end up supplementing the funding if needed, or who knows, you're right, things may end up coming up that we didn't anticipate that we need to have contingency for.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was wondering is, as a board, or as you know, as we're managing this, as you're managing this, that should we be thinking about having a policy of having a certain amount of reserve ready to go? I know we do that at Zone 7, but you know, I don't know what the proposal might be for here.
It's a good question. As of yet, we don't have a policy other than I do agree that it's a very good idea to have reserve contingency. But we don't have a set amount, and that's something that we certainly could talk about.
Okay.
President Atwater, it looks like Catano has a question.
Sure, go ahead, Catano.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that DCA really works in a reimbursable basis, so we really don't have reserves. It will be a contingency line item that you would approve for specific items and or contingency allocated. So I was curious, Graham, that even though we don't have an exact number and budgets are never really exact, that you could have estimated that number and have the board approve it. So unless you just wanted to split it. So I was just curious because you could have put it into contingency.
I think, Catano, and I understand your point. I think our preference is to just keep it clean and close the books on the current fiscal year, because I don't know for sure that given the amount of work that's going right now, I think we're doing our best to project what that underrun is going to be. But my preference would be to just get the books closed, get it solid, know what that exact number is, and bring it back to the board.
Bring back to the board. Okay. And then at that time, they will adjust the budget to include that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't, and that's a good point. I think from Catano's perspective, we don't have large reserves at DCA. It's really a cash in, cash out, but you have a contingency for adjustments to contractor, expenses and all that. So,
Right.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the FY 21-22 budget.
I'll move.
Second,
We have a motion, a second by Director Anatol and seconded by Director Palmer. You want to call the?
I will gladly call the roll.
Yeah.
President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Stamera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Excellent. The budget has been approved.
Good.
I just
Or
want to
adopt.
point something out, Richard. If I'm looking to the side, it's because I have everything on a bigger screen. I'm
Yep.
not ignoring you guys or doing my personal email.
All right. Well, I have three. I'm trying to keep track of all this stuff going back and forth in this paperless world we live in. Let's move on now to Agenda 8C. This one's to pass a resolution to adopt an updated investment policy. Katana, are you going to give that
Yes,
presentation?
I will be giving that presentation. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Oh,
Very good.
thank you. Thank you. So every year we'll bring you an investment policy either to update or make any changes per the government code. So the government code allows expressly grants the authority to the board of directors to invest public funds, and that authority may be delegated to the treasurer for a one-year basis. And it can move to the next slide. I don't know if you're sharing. Thank you. The next slide. Thank you. So we only had really few comments, and mostly I wanted to make sure we have clarity on some of the line items, and also wanted to give us some flexibility. The first item in the last investment policy for 2020-21, we had CP at 10% limit, and this time we wanted to provide further clarity by delineating that 5% limit per issuer and combined 10% limit per issuer for CP and medium-term notes. Additionally, we looked at issuer for commercial paper and thrift banks and foreign banks. We wanted to clarify that and give more details what that meant. So we have now the language saying issued by nationally or state chartered banks, savings associations or federal associations, state or local or federal government credit unions, federally licensed or state licensed branch of a foreign bank. So that added more clarity to that line item. And lastly, I wanted some flexibility in investing in our California Asset Management Program, CAMPS for short. We had 30% allocated. We want to allocate about 40% to that. And this is mainly because it is being the best performance last year, since the rates are really, really low. So we wanted some flexibility. We think the rates might still stay low, at least through this year, if, at least, and maybe even a portion of next year. So this will help us keep all the funds in there and earn a tiny bit of interest. So those were the only changes this time. And so we are, and you have the original and the red line copies for your preview, and any concerns that you have, please let me know. So we are recommending for you to approve the statement of investment policy for fiscal year 2021-22 and further delegate authority to the treasurer to invest DCA's funds for fiscal year 21-22. And that's the report. Happy to take any questions.
Great. Let me just check again. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
President Atwater, we have not received any requests for this item.
Good. Any questions on this updated policy for 21-22? Director Chang?
Yes, thank you, President Atwater. Katano, thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question. Could you maybe remind me whether the policies that we're being asked to approve, the revisions, are they kind of consistent with what Metropolitan's investment policy looks like?
Yes and no, slightly different, thanks
Okay.
to your legal counsel. The Metropolitan has slightly different policies, so there are a few areas what we differ. For example, we can invest more in money markets in different ways or CP, but some of the language here mimic the state, the local government, city, county. So we match our investment policy specifically mimics more of the local government rather than utility. So but we do start off, I always look at what changes I need for Metropolitan and then cross-check and see whether those changes can flow here. And most of the time is really about what the state is doing and changing, so we change those accordingly.
Yeah. And of course, we have a very short-term time horizon with our investments.
Yeah, they're both short-term, just that the legal, the 53601 is slightly different for the utilities and the other local governments.
Yeah, as Capone mentioned, it's really an amount of assets. So larger entities have a little bit more flexibility. Smaller entities like the DCA have less flexibility.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see any. So let's have a motion and a second to get this approved.
So moved, Martin.
Great. Who's a second?
Second, Millibar.
All right. We got a motion and a second, and I'll ask Claudia to call the vote.
President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Stamera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anabdawi.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on. This is an action item 2 for the board. 8E is the DCA Board of Directors Cadence. If you may remember last month, the last couple of months, we talked about how often do we want to meet towards the rest of this year. And,
Director Atwater, sorry to interrupt you. I believe we are on item
C.
8D for resolution to adopt updated ethics policy and protest policy.
Excuse me, I apologize. I skipped over it. Yes, who's going to give that presentation?
I can handle that one, President Atwater. So this is really a cleanup item for the board. When the DCA was initially formed, the board of directors at that time adopted a number of just sort of standard policies. Those included an ethics and protest policy. Since that time, there's been a number of changes with the organization, most notably the amended and restated JPA, which took effect this year. We updated the bylaws right after that, right when the new board was seated, to ensure consistency. And as we were closing the fiscal year, we thought it was a good time to just really take a pause, look at everything that's on the books, and make sure everything's up to date and consistent. Through that review, we noticed a number of minor changes in the protests and ethics policy that we recommend the board consider implementing. There is a red line in your packet, but a short summary of the changes, they include things like changing the address for the DCA now that we're in the new building, some minor changes to reflect new law related to anti-discrimination definitions, and then most notably to delete a portion of the ethics policy which is duplicative of the bylaws, and just to avoid any potential inconsistencies between the two, staff's recommending that we just have the bylaws handle that. As I mentioned, there is a red line in the packet. Be happy to answer any questions on any particular edits or anything else on the item. Thank you.
So Josh, in general, there's no real substantive changes. It's just conforming the documents.
That's correct. There is no substantive change beyond the one that's required by law related to definitions for anti-discrimination. Yes.
Yeah. Any questions from the board? Director Chang.
Yes, thank you. Just quick question for our council. So was this the revisions performed by by you, or could you remind me who actually went through and, did all the red line?
Yeah, I did an initial review, and then I had the team review it to make sure that anybody else had any additional edits.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions? I don't see any. Do we have a motion to?
We need public comment.
That's true. Claudia, do you have any public comments on this one?
Yes, President Atwater, we do have one request from Mr. Kurt Terrace.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. In regards to the protest procedures, Infrastructure Improvement submitted a timely protest for our disqualification or unfair disqualification related to your program management solicitation. And it didn't really go well. I mean, we submitted our protest, we requested a hearing before you and the board, and we never was granted that. I think your protest procedure should give an option for when it's declined to be heard by the board, rather than it being a staff decision to deny a protest. We also requested documents to evaluate your procurement procedure for that contract, and we didn't get them until like 1.5 years or 2 years after, and we should have gotten them immediately. So I think your protest procedure should include 2 things. 1, a hearing in front of the board on the matter, and 2, disclosure of the procurement documents related to the protest. So like, for example, like for us, we thought we did everything we needed to do to get that contract. We wrote all the letters, all the forms, signed them. Turns out the firm that won that contract didn't fill out the forms, didn't complete them, didn't complete the ethics disclosures, didn't complete the disclosure of their past legal matters, didn't disclose their conflicts of interest, just didn't even sign the forms. I didn't find that out till 2 years later. So like, here I am stuck in limbo, wasting my time on this protest that, if I had given the opportunity to speak to you earlier, I think we would have resolved this problem a long time ago. And here we are now, 2 years later, still waiting for payment of our costs. I mean, we spent a lot of money to put that proposal in. Time, effort. We were veterans, disabled veterans, working on a proposal to get the best we can to you, and we were summarily disqualified on like a technicality, saying that we didn't have enough experience. I wanted to present that to you, and I think your protest procedure is kind of really short. I mean, it's 1 page or 2 page. It's doesn't really talk about our rights as bidders, as the public contract code gives us. It's very vague. It's basically like, well, if you don't submit in 5 days, we can just ignore it. And that's kind of what I've been told for like the last 2 years, that we didn't put a timely protest in. We put a protest in within like 24 hours of hearing the bad news that you guys thought we were disqualifiable. And I think we need to have a sit down and really go over both what happened to us as an example of what to fix, and how to resolve this procedure, this policy, so that you get good bids from the community, that you get small businesses and disadvantaged businesses like mine to put in. Otherwise, we're getting kind of like the door shut on us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move, looking for a motion and a second to approve this.
I move we approve.
Can you
I'll
get a
second.
All right, Director Millibar seconds it. Go ahead and call the vote.
President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estamera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anapdawi.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 8E, and this is something we talked about the last couple of months, and that's the DCA board meeting and how often over the next 6 months. Graham, he's got a slide up there. We'll let him go ahead and talk about the options.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Atwater. We just have this graphic up to help facilitate the conversation. At this point, we've been continuing with the monthly cadence as we've been approaching the current meeting with approval of the fiscal year 21-22 budget, but now we're here. And I think it seems like an appropriate time based on past considerations of the board to think about what you think would be a good sequence and cadence going forward. We've indicated just to facilitate the conversation, kind of the two bookends here. The first being monthly, to continue to meet monthly. As you have been, we could always cancel meetings if there's nothing really to cover at the board meeting, but to keep them on calendars monthly. Conversely, the opposite end of the spectrum would be to meet every 6 months, as indicated in the lower right-hand corner. Per the JPA, the board must meet at least twice yearly. So this would generally conform to that. The next meeting in this case would be in December. I'd say just one other comment. For all of these options that are considered, there can always be special meetings added or meetings canceled. So the sequence that is discussed and established here doesn't mean that is the only sequence. There could always be adjustments to that. And then of course the board has the right, of course, to come back and decide and change the cadence in the future. So this is just, I think, to prompt a discussion among the board and decide if there's a change that you'd like to make here going forward.
Great. Let me just check with Claudia to see if there's any public comment first on how often we meet.
No further comment requests, President
Great.
Atwater.
Excellent. Director Palmer, you have your hand up.
Yeah, we were discussing this one, and my personal feeling is that I think we should basically say we were going to meet bi-monthly. If there was really nothing to do, we could always cancel it. But if we have some kind of an expected meeting time that isn't too stretched out, we keep our presence there. I think if we start to quarterly or twice yearly, I think would be we would disappear into the woodwork completely. So I think in terms of maintaining our presence, if we had at least a bi-monthly, we could always cancel it, or we could schedule another one if something came up. But at least that would give people an expectation of a regularity and keep us kind of like front and center in terms of our existence.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. We're starting a new fiscal year, July 1. So if you think through the next year, if we just said we're meeting bi-monthly, it's routine enough that people expect to have meetings. But I'm open to other suggestions if other directors have a thought about meeting.
This is Director Millibar. I would support what was just suggested. I think that's a good way to start out, bi-monthly.
Yeah. Any other suggestions or comments from the other board members?
Yeah,
Sure.
this is Director Martin. Yeah, when this came up before, I said I would defer to the judgment of President Atwater and others who have been on the board longer. So you've already expressed your judgment on this, and I would support the bi-monthly approach. It would be good, though, I think, if we could kind of keep the regular scheduled day and time open on your calendar in case we do have to, because asking Claudia to go and find out if everyone's available, that's kind of a difficult thing. So
Only so many doodle polls you really want to do.
That's right. Yeah, so that's a good point. We, as a matter of practice, would always have the third Thursday our time on your calendar, just in case we have to call a special meeting. That's the way it doesn't become as Gary rightfully said, and Claudia would be out there trying to twist all our arms to get the perfect day that works.
right. So I would support the bi-monthly approach.
Any other Tony? You got it.
Yeah, I'll move that bi-monthly meeting.
Do we have a second?
Jane, the second.
Yeah.
Melissa.
Yeah. Any other comments? Everybody comfortable with this approach?
One question, President Atwater, with what's described in the bi-monthly description here, starting in August, is that correct? So we wouldn't have a July meeting, is that correct?
That's what they illustrated. That's something we could, we're adopting the budget. We adopted all these things. So I guess it makes sense. We probably don't have I see one hand raised, but that was one perspective that
Okay.
August would, you know.
Yeah.
Dr. Palmer, you had a comment on that?
Well, I was just wondering, because we had a couple of things to tidy up that we were discussing in closed session, and it might be good to just kind of take care of that in July. But I mean, I just leave that up to everybody else.
That's a thoughtful comment. I don't know. I assume we could do that. I mean, certainly.
Another follow-up question, President Atwater. I guess this probably trends into a somewhat different topic, but are we proposing to continue virtual meetings in July or?
That's a good question. You know, June 15th is here now, and we're opening up. What do you think, Josh? Are we going to start having regular face-to-face meetings?
Yeah, so the governor has issued an executive order which allows us to meet remote only through September 30th. So staff's recommendation, staff's initial thoughts of it to board direction we would continue to meet remotely through that time period. Staff is exploring some options about hybrid meetings because now or even after September 30th, the Brown Act does allow teleconference meetings. It's just that the locations where the directors participate from are public and need to be posted on the agenda. There are some audio visual issues with the current board chambers related to those types of hybrid meetings. And I know Jennifer's working on that. So I think, to answer the question, staff's initial thought was that we would be remote at least through the executive order. But if the board would like to meet in person, we can arrange that much sooner.
Director Palmer, you have your hand?
Yeah, I just have a suggestion that we meet remotely in July. That way we won't have to head across the Central Valley in this heat. And then skip August, be very European about this, and then start out with bi-monthly in September.
Yeah. Although if you meet in July and not in August, that's bi-monthly too. Yeah. It's just,
Well, that's right. We skip August, and that way we'd start. Go July and then September, November. Skip December because everybody's doing stuff in December, and then start again in January.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Any other suggestions or comments? Yeah.
President Atwater, if I could, I'm just curious, are we taking action on this item or is this providing direction to staff on the cadence?
I think it was just direction, wasn't it? Wasn't it, Richard?
Yeah, it's a direction. Sorry, President Atwater, would you like me to answer that?
Go ahead. I mean, it does, we could make a motion. It's on the agenda, but if everybody agrees, you could also just by consensus,
Well, we did do a motion, didn't we?
I think you did.
But
yeah.
The only question now is what's the first month if you do it bi-monthly? And simply put, if you start off in July, then you automatically go July, September, November, January. You can do it in your head.
President Atwater, could I make one comment on this?
Sure.
So I was thinking about a couple of items. Next year, when we come back around to this point, we will likely want to revert back to a monthly cadence just through the draft budget preparation cycle. So likely the same April, May.
Yeah, that's a good point. Springtime, you're going to want to do that monthly.
If we maintain that that idea as was suggested by, I'm sorry, I forget who suggested that. It was a good suggestion that we basically set aside every third Thursday. Then we can always just put in extra meetings. But everybody should make sure you put it on your calendar.
And then I'll just offer that we will continue to prepare monthly board reports to distribute progress on the program. So there won't be lapses in terms of information distribution. Just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah. So again, it's providing continuity and always be prepared that we could have a special meeting on any third Thursday, but we're starting off in July and it's every other month for the next fiscal year. It's kind of, and that could change. And as Josh just pointed out, post September, things might be, in-person meetings, and that may change also our thinking. Any other suggestions? I'm from my perspective, I think it'd be nice if somebody made a motion a second to say that we're going to schedule bi-monthly meetings.
Okay, Tony, I think already was making an motion. Tony, do you want to kind of flesh that out?
Yeah, you want to repeat it?
Well, my motion was just by monthly meetings.
Okay.
And I would like to flesh that out of saying we start that after the July meeting.
Director Estromera, are you comfortable with that as the?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. That's
Do
fine.
we have a second?
Second.
Yep. Okay. Then any other questions, any other suggestions? If not, I'll ask Claudia to go ahead and call the roll on that.
President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estromera,
Aye.
Director Palmer,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Yes.
and Director Anabdawi.
Yes.
Excellent.
Great,
Motion
that-
passes
Good.
unanimously.
Good discussion and appreciate the consensus. We'll move on to agenda item 9, the staff reports. And 9A is Josh's staff report.
Thanks, President Atwater. I was actually hoping to cover a lot of what we just talked about in the last item related to the Brown Act executive orders. But the one thing we didn't cover in that item was the Cal OSHA mask rules. So Cal OSHA actually voted earlier today to impose or to adopt some emergency temporary standards related to masks at a very high level. They essentially require unvaccinated employees to wear masks while indoors and allow vaccinated employees while indoors not to wear masks, and allow everyone to not wear a mask outside.
Outdoors.
Yeah. Marcy Scott, the DCA's HR director, has been working very closely with everyone to make sure that we remain in compliance. We'll continue to do so. The one remaining piece on this issue is the Cal OSHA regs by themselves actually don't take effect for a period of time due to some of the administrative procedures that need to run through. But the governor has indicated that he would be issuing an executive order if Cal OSHA took the direction they did today to make those standards effective immediately. I have not seen if the executive order has been issued shortly, but anticipated it is later today or tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. Very timely news.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Somebody needs to mute.
I'm managing.
Question for Josh.
Please go ahead.
Josh, is the no mask for fully vaccinated, is that by the honor system?
Yes. So the initial Cal OSHA rules, which were withdrawn, actually required documentation. The new rules, which are approved today, allow self-attestation by employees, but do require employers to keep documentation.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Not able to.
Gary, I think that you have got, oh, he just muted, never mind.
Good. You have any other items, Josh, to report on?
That was all I had, President Atwater. Happy to answer any other questions.
Okay. See no other questions, we'll go to the Treasurer's report and ask Katana to provide that.
Hello, hi. So this is for May 2021 report. We began the month with $674,000, 540, but subsequently by the end of the month we had over $2 million, 2.208990, and mainly because we received money from DCO and we were not able to process our payments at the same time. So by June 9th, we did make some payments and ended up with $694,227. Again, the reason we have a little bit of money on hand is basically the seed money that was provided to us in the beginning. I know that there's some discussion about what to do with those funds, and we will update you in the future. But that's really the reason why we always have a little bit of money. Otherwise, DCO will send us the bills, and we pay when we receive money from them. So that is the agreement they have at this point. It might change if the seed money is not available. So because we do have to prepay a lot of our leases and other items that we need this DCA to be able to operate. So I think there will be further discussion with this DCO about this item. And lastly, I just want to mention that we do have all the schedules attached, including budget versus actual. You'll see in our year-to-date budget, we are tracking about 1.7 million lower than budget, slightly different from what Graham reported. And this is mainly because for us, it's actuals that we actually process. He has a slightly different numbers because he's looking at what is projected and bills that are coming through. So by the end of the year, though, we should all be on this exact same page when we close the books. So that's my report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Catala? I don't see any. Thank you so much, Catala, for that presentation. Good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move on to 9C, and that's Carrie Becknam in the DWR Environmental Managers Report.
Thank you, President Atwater. So my report is in the file. There were just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. The first is that we've talked a number of times in the past about the environmental justice survey that we released last year. So in November and December, the survey was open to collect information on how disadvantaged communities use resources in the Delta. And we've published the report on the survey results. It's on our website, and it includes quite a bit of information about both mapped and discussed resources that were part of that survey. Additionally, last week, we posted a notice that we're going to have 4 technical workshops this summer. So we know that as people start gearing up for their review of the EIR next year, there are a lot of pieces of the EIR that are pretty technical and pretty challenging for most readers to fully understand. One of the things we heard during the EJ survey is that a lot of people feel as they could use more education on some of these topics. So, well, on the program in general. And so as part of that, we're going to be having 4 technical workshops that are focused on helping potential readers understand technical aspects of the EIR. So we have 4 scheduled. The first is on state water project operations and the Delta Conveyance Project. The second is the second is fisheries. The third is climate change, and the fourth is environmental justice. And that information is all on our website. So, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to hopefully finding time to sit through each one of those. It's keeping track of all these on the calendar. Director Palmer, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is possible to put like the dates of those workshops right on the DCA website as a side box or something for information.
I believe, oh, I'm sorry. I believe Jasmine's already done that.
Oh, she's done it.
Yeah.
Well, see, shows you that I haven't checked.
Yeah. Any other questions of Carrie? Seeing none, the last item on the staff reports is any other verbal reports. Do we have any? Dr. Palmer?
Yes, I would like to introduce John Weed from the Alameda County Water District, and he is the alternate for this position. And so, John, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself shortly?
Thank you. I enjoy the opportunity and feeling honored to have the chance to join this group. I'm in my 26th year as a director of the Alameda County Water District. I've also been on the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency board since its inception in 2003. Those are the Hetch Hetchy suburban customers. I was on the Region 5 board for a number of years and chair for 4 of those years, so put me on the board of directors of the Aqua. And I'm actively involved in the Aqua Federal Affairs Committee for a number of years. My education includes a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, MBA in Finance, Juris Doctor in Law, a member of the California Bar, and an Alba dissertation in Water Resource Administration from the University of Arizona, a program which unfortunately has gone to demise. I've retired as the rank of full colonel as an Air Force civil engineer in the Air Force Reserves and had the opportunity to do numerous projects worldwide. With also, with similar budgets, actually. So again, I look forward to this, and as with Brett Hasty, I served on the community college board for almost 34 years, and leaving that back in 2010. So enjoy the opportunity to stay involved, and particularly on this project, where our district has been strong supporters of the Delta conveyance, going back to the Perfield Canal, as well as to this project. I think we were the first one to sign up on the Finance Authority. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so
I'm
much,
really
John.
Pleased.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You obviously have an impeccable resume and your expertise, and you're involved in so many community activities, but particularly water. We appreciate your participation. Thank you so much. And sir, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, I'm just really glad that we do finally have an alternate, and that we are able to work the because as you know, the Alameda County Water District and Zone 7 share a seat. So it's a good thing to have, you know, both of us here present, and so I'm very glad for that. So thank you.
So I expect to see John sitting next to you when we have a real meeting then?
Maybe.
I think I have to sit behind.
Okay.
As the alternate. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 10, future agenda items. Does anybody have a request for a future agenda item? Seeing none, we can adjourn. Thank you all for participating today, and good meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you. Take care.
And
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
thank you.
Have a great afternoon and stay cool.